It's January 6, 1994, Detroit. The air is cold. The ice is freshly cut. And Olympic hopeful Nancy Kerrigan is leaving the rink after a practice session. She's smiling, waving to the cameras, the picture of grace. Suddenly, a dark figure lunges from behind a curtain, swings a metal baton, and connects with her right knee. Nancy collapses to the floor, her screams echoing through the arena. Cameras catch the raw, agonizing moment as she cries out, "Why? Why me?" That single clip would play on a loop for weeks on every network, becoming one of the most infamous images of the decade. At the time, the #1 song was All for Love by Bryan Adams, Rod Stewart, and Sting. The biggest movie was Mrs. Doubtfire. The O.J. Simpson saga was still months away. Nobody knew it yet, but this attack on a figure skater would explode into a story far bigger than sports. It would become a tale of obsession, betrayal, and pure 90s pop culture madness. To understand the explosion, you have to understand the two women at its center. First, there was Nancy Kerrigan. She was polished, elegant, and had the classic ice princess look the media adored. With major sponsorships from brands like Campbell's and Reebok, she was positioned as America's sweetheart, the girl next door who was destined for Olympic gold. Then there was Tonya Harding. Tonya was the complete opposite. She came from a rough, blue-collar background in Oregon. She was a powerhouse on the ice, a phenomenal athlete who was the first American woman to land the notoriously difficult triple axel in competition. But her style was aggressive. Her costumes were often homemade, and she didn't fit the graceful, delicate mold the sports, judges, and sponsors preferred. The media had already painted its picture long before the attack. Nancy was the princess, and Tonya was the scrappy, rough-around-the-edges villain. Their rivalry was already intense, fueled by the stark class divide as they headed into the 1994 Olympic season with everything on the line. Behind the scenes, Tonya Harding's life was a pressure cooker. She grew up with an allegedly abusive mother and was trapped in a volatile on-again, off-again marriage with a man named Jeff Gill. While Nancy was signing endorsement deals, Tonya was struggling to pay for her training. She felt overlooked and disrespected by the figure skating establishment, and that resentment grew every time she saw Nancy's face on a magazine cover. Friends described Tonya as fiercely competitive and tough, but also deeply emotional. That potent mix of desperation, anger, and a feeling that the world was stacked against her was beginning to boil over. The seeds of a truly terrible idea were being planted, and that's where the story takes a turn into the bizarre. Tonya's ex-husband, Jeff Gillooly, decided he needed to protect Tonya's career. He teamed up with her self-proclaimed bodyguard, a man named Sean Eckert, who presented himself as a globe-trotting espionage expert but was, in reality, just a guy living with his parents. Their initial talks about sending threatening letters to Nancy quickly escalated into a harebrained scheme to take her out of the competition entirely. What followed was a masterclass in Eckert, and Gillooly brought in two more accomplices, Derek Smith and his nephew, Shane Stant, who would become the actual attacker. The group's planning sessions were almost comical. They were caught on tape arguing about how to do it, where to do it, and how to get away. They followed Nancy from Massachusetts to Detroit, fumbling details and nearly getting caught at every turn. It was a crime plotted by a group of clueless amateurs, a scheme so absurd it never should have worked. But it did. And it would make world history. The attack on Nancy's knee sent shockwaves across the globe. She was hospitalized, her Olympic dreams hanging by a thread. The media frenzy was instantaneous. Just 2 days later, at the U.S. National Championships, the very event, Nancy was forced to withdraw from Tonya Harding, skated a nearly flawless program, and won the title. The crowd roared with applause, completely unaware of the dark scandal that was about to erupt. But the plan began to unravel almost immediately. The FBI got involved, and the getaway driver, Derek Smith, confessed within days. The conspirators, especially Eckert, couldn't keep their mouths shut. Under the pressure of federal investigation, Jeff Gillooly cracked and pointed the finger not only at the others, but implicated Tonya as well, claiming she knew about the plot from the beginning. Tonya held a tearful press conference, denying any involvement, but with her ex-husband and bodyguard talking to the feds, suspicion was mounting fast, and her world was about to come crashing down. Tonya Harding's downfall was swift and brutal. She went from U.S. champion to public enemy #1 in a matter of weeks. The media was relentless. dissecting her every tear, every denial. As the FBI investigation closed in, they uncovered evidence that Tonya learned about the plot after it happened and actively participated in obstructing the investigation. The consequences were severe. The U.S. Figure Skating Association stripped her of her 1994 national title and banned her from the sport for life. Her name became a punchline on late-night television. Meanwhile, in a stunning display of resilience, Nancy Kerrigan recovered from her injury in just 7 weeks. She went on to compete at the 1994 Winter Olympics in Lillehammer, delivering a beautiful performance and winning the silver medal. Tonya, who was allowed to compete after threatening a lawsuit, had a disastrous skate, finishing in a disappointing 8th place. Her career was over, and her reputation was in ruins. The scandal wasn't just a sports story. It became a full-blown media circus. 24-hour news cycles were just beginning, and this was the perfect fuel. Tabloid shows like Hard Copy and Inside Edition ran endless segments. Saturday Night Live created iconic Tonya and Nancy became the first viral personalities of the pre-internet age. Their lives went in wildly different directions. Nancy hosted SNL and got a Disney endorsement. Tonya, desperate for money, took part in a celebrity boxing match. For years, the story was a cultural obsession, a bizarre mix of tragedy, dark comedy, and a raw look at America's class divide. The nation simply couldn't look away. Decades later, the scandal still fascinates us. In 2017, the movie I, Tonya reframed the narrative, portraying Tonya Harding as both a victim of her circumstances and a complicit figure in her own demise. It forced audiences to reconsider the one-dimensional villain they remembered from the 90s. In the years since, Nancy Kerrigan has largely stayed out of the spotlight, becoming a motivational speaker and raising her family. Tonya has rebuilt her life quietly, away from the chaos that once defined her. The incident became cultural shorthand for sports sabotage and the height of 90s media hysteria. In the end, it was never just about two skaters competing for a medal. It was about class, ambition, pain, and a country that has always loved a good story with a hero and a villain. It was about a moment in time when a desperate, clumsy crime captured the world's attention and left us with one haunting question echoing from the ice. Why me?